we're getting ready to walk into a very fun exercise on defining your personal values. Before you lead a team, it's really important to understand your values and what you hold near and dear to your heart and how you support these values through your day-to-day behavior. How are you walking that talk? Ultimately, your values and leadership is what's going to contribute to our amazing team culture. We can't live into values that we cannot name. So it's going to be really important at the end of this exercise for you to take some time to start to name the things that you value. Living into your values requires moving beyond aspirations into more observed behavior. So again, doing the work. And we don't expect you to come in knowing everything. Being a manager and being in this new role is going to take time and a lot of practice. And you may find later that there's additional things that you value and things that you may have held really high that don't quite apply to management. So this is going to be a nice little fun exercise. But before we dive into that, let's take a step back and think about our department values as a whole. Now, in our coaching manual, when you first onboarded, you were able to go through this as a short reading. But I'm just going to give you a little bit more color into why we created these and what these actually mean. At the end of the day, beyond being a manager, you're still fundamentally a health coach. And that's the beauty of this position, is that you understand behavior change. But you also understand how hard that is. But it takes a lot of work and a lot of help and a lot of support. And a lot of that support comes from a health coach. So as a health coach, we bring the highest quality and best evidence to everything we do. That's why grand rounds are so important. That's why your professional development is so important. That's why operations and our quality assurance, we're constantly making sure that we're giving the best we can to our pivoters. So ultimately we have amazing outcomes and that we're saving lives. We also care about each other and try to communicate that very clearly. That's why as a leader, we've tried to demonstrate transparency. We've tried to demonstrate fairness and try to demonstrate a place where coaches can come together and openly discuss their problems, where they're struggling, their aspirations, in a place that feels safe for them. We also believe in each other and assume the best. We're working remotely, and a lot of times we don't get the opportunity to meet each other in person. And so that in itself can be a little tricky, especially if you're reading things between the lines through Slack messages you're not quite understanding. We love, as a leader, for you to take a step back and to really assume the best. And if you're unsure, follow up with that coach or follow up with that leader if something came across a little funky. We also have each other's backs. At the end of the day, as a manager, it is your job to have your team's back and hold their best self and their best interest at heart. We value and capitalize on each other's unique strengths. There's a lot of differences within our team, and that's what makes us wonderful, and that also makes us powerful, that we have a lot of different strengths. As a manager, you do not have to be someone's everything. You have other managers to lean on. You actually have other team members that might have a different skill set than you have. Lean on that. Capitalize on their unique strengths and how that's different from yours. We inspire and challenge each other to grow professionally as well as personally. And this is something that is very key for managers, is to inspire, to help motivate, help coaches find that interest and motivation to want to continue to learn and grow. We collaborate to navigate through challenges and ambiguity. That's why you see the coaching Slack channels where there's case studies, the grand rounds, all opportunities for us to kind of talk everything out. We're thoughtful and respectful and kind-hearted in our interactions with each other as well as our pivoters. When we're hiring, we always find coaches at the center is their heart, and that they lead with their heart and kindness. We engage in self-care. This is super important as a leader, to engage in self-care and take moments when you need them to take a step back. You have other supervisors, you have other leaders that you can lean on and to work through. So if you're ever feeling like it's just a bit too much, lean in on your resources. Lastly, as a company, not just as a department, we're all in this together, and we truly believe at Carrot that we are better together than in our individual parts. So how do we get into this fun exercise of defining your values? Well, first, before we do that, take a big breath in, big breath out, because we're going to dive a little deeper, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions for you to consider as a homework. And I'd love for you to take this opportunity as well to start doing this with your team. We have a few exercises that you can do with your team where you're understanding their values and exploring what that looks like, and also exploring what their strengths are as well, so that they can ultimately set goals and so that those goals can achieve to our department goals. So take a moment to reflect on your values as a leader or the type of leader you want to be. So what kind of leader do you want to be? So take a moment, maybe press pause, just write out a few high-level details of the type of leader you aspire to be. And as a value, our value is what we want. When you think about your values, we want you to think about, what do I hold most dear into this leadership position? How do I want to be recognized as a leader? Living into your values requires a clear understanding of who you are and having a strong sense of the behaviors that you do on a daily basis, and understanding if those values and your behaviors are in line. And if they're not in line, how do you course correct as a leader to make sure they are? When faced with adversity or uncertainty, particularly in leadership, having these values up front and always present is going to be very important. If we don't have our values to remind us why we're being courageous, that cynic or that inner critic can bring us to our knees, especially if you're trying to deliver feedback and you're unsure of yourself, or if you're receiving feedback yourself. Living into your values means that we do more than profess them. We act, we practice them. Again, you're going to learn a lot on the job, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to do amazing things as well. But the key here is for you to walk the talk and walk the department talk as well, and be clear about what you believe in and what we believe in as a leadership team, and take care that our intentions, our words, our thoughts, and our behaviors align with those beliefs. So these last two slides are going to give you just examples of how I'd like you to go through this exercise. So I'd like you to take a moment to list out your values. I've created a little handsheet for you that you can look at. It's called From the Daring to Lead book, and it has a plethora of different values. You can print that off if you want to. You can write it on a piece of paper and underline the values that are near and dear to you. Then I want you to take your top 10 and start to really think about these values in a different way. Do these values define me? Is this who I am at my best? Is this a filter that I will use when I need to make hard decisions? Then I want you to take those 10 values and list 3 behaviors that support those values. Next, I want you to start to think about some areas where you might be on a slippery slope that may lead you to outside those values. Maybe as an individual, maybe as a leader, where you don't feel very strong and connected. And then think about early warning signs that you're living outside those values or you're getting close to that slope. The last 2 questions are mainly about support. So what would support look like from your team that you're going to be managing and from your supervisor for these values to live? Lastly, I'd love for you to think about yourself. So what can you do as an act of compassion to support yourself and the hard work of living into these values on a daily basis? So take some time to think about your values, list out those top 10, and then place them in the portal here under your management training. We're looking forward to reading them.